Hey everybody. Today I just want to do a little mini update here. I did a lot of work the other day, and I normally sort of video everything I do as I do it, or most things anyway. I tinker around here and there without getting it on video. But for the most part, I try to do sort of video log of pretty much everything I do so that those of you who wish to follow along can pretty much keep up with my daily adventures here in my fish room. Over the last couple of weeks, I was kind of slacking. I've been going through kind of a slump as the weather's changed, etc., and I didn't get a lot done. And yesterday, or the day before rather, I had a little bit of a spurt where I got in here and I did a bunch of work to several of my tanks. So we're just going to go around and have a look at the tanks I actually did work on rather than all of them. So this is my Gourami tank, and you can probably tell if you follow along with my videos that it's much more brightly lit and wide open. I got in there and I removed a ton of the floating water sprite that's on the left, and on the right I had some temple plant that was growing really thick and dense and getting much taller and was actually growing all the way up towards the surface. So I got in there and I thinned that out, and that lets a lot more light down lower in the tank. Of course, I did a pretty big water change that removed a lot of the tannins and makes the tank a lot brighter and more open looking as well. And some of this Java fern here was getting pretty dense and thick, and I thinned that out so you can actually see the wood. And you can even now begin to see the scrape marks on the wood where my whiptail catfish or my Farluella gets on there and chews on the wood. So I actually like being able to see that. And he was out a little while ago. He was actually sitting up on the spray bar, and of course I did not get my camera out in time to get him. Now it looks like there's just a little otocinclus up there. Other than that, I didn't really do anything. I did find a couple little pieces of Java fern that had broken loose from somewhere or another. This piece right here you can kind of see is a newer looking piece that's still sort of sideways wedged under that rock. And then this little piece right here is sort of wedged under that rock. And we'll see how that starts to grow in. I might have to get in there and go into the back of the tank and clear away some of this Java fern here. I'm beginning to think it's really impeding the flow of water across the back of the tank. I have my usual power head set up in the lower left-hand side, as I do on most of my tanks, and it gives me a nice good flow across the back. But with all of those roots and all of that Java fern there, I think a lot of that water gets blocked and deflected, and that affects how much detritus accumulates down this end of the tank. It affects how effectively my filter picks it up, and so on and so forth. So next time I get in there and do some real plant maintenance, I'm going to get in there and remove some of that Java. So moving on, we've got my Angelfish tank. Pretty much the same story. Let's see if I can get around this stuff. I've still got the room a bit of a mess. Got in here, I did a nice big water change, probably again about maybe a 35 to 40%. I removed a lot of the floating water sprite on the left and the right. I do like to keep some on both sides to give this fish here, you can see this angelfish is the odd male. My other two are a mated pair, so this one usually gets stuck down at this end of the tank by itself, and they like to have a little bit of the security of having the floating plants, so I like to keep some at both ends. These two were showing spawning behavior yesterday, and I fully expected to see a spawn today, and so far I've seen nothing. I haven't seen any spawning behavior or anything. In fact, when I turned the lights on this morning, it was kind of odd. The male, which is this albino here, I know he's facing directly away, it's kind of hard to see him. He was all the way at the other end of the tank, sleeping down at the bottom, completely alone. And the female, which is that long-finned mixed veil right there, she was down at this left end of the tank, and she was right next to the German blue over there, which is not her mate. So I found it odd that they looked like they had paired off, and her mate was the one that was the odd man out. So I'm not sure what was going on with that, but as soon as the lights came on and everybody woke up, they got back to their normal, he's down at his end and these two are staying separate down at this end. But just found that unusual that the pairs had seemed to swap overnight while they were sleeping. So who knows what they get up to down here once the lights go out. That's their business, not mine. The Black Ghost Knifefish tank I have not done anything with, so we're going to skip right over that. I will give you a very, very brief look at my new native tank. You notice there's a few little fish in there. More on those later. My Gudgeon Tank. Got in here and did a simple water change, nothing else. I wiped down the glass and did a water change and cleaned away a lot of the dead, leaves that had come loose and were floating, and that was it. I didn't do anything with the filter, I didn't do anything with the rocks or anything like that. I was just getting tired of looking at that filthy glass. And the only thing that was on the glass to make it filthy was a little bit of algae, or I should say green algae, standard algae that you would think of, and then it was some of that diatom algae, which is the brown stuff. And it wipes away very easily. You can see it's all over the back glass. I could get in there and wipe it off if I wanted. It's no big deal. But, on the viewing pane, I like to be able to look into my tank when I want. And right there, I was just getting ready to say, if you look on the back glass right to the left of that centered plant, you will see a rubber lip pleco. I got 2 of them today. That's the big one out of the 2 I got. And then the other one, I have no idea where he is. I did not quarantine them. I probably should have, but I don't have my quarantine tank set up right at the moment. I'm not making that as an excuse. It's easy enough to take half an hour, not even that. I've got some 10-gallon tanks. I could have just scrubbed one out, got it nice and clean, and then set it up, and I would have had a quarantine tank. Just didn't feel like it, The only thing I'm really worried about, and I'm not really worried about that, would be ick. There's a possibility that you can bring other parasites home. Chances are the parasite you're most likely to bring home, if you do, would be ick. And if I do bring ick into the tank, I know how to deal with it. It's just going to be a big nuisance getting rid of it if I get it in there. So I decided it was worth it for me to just take the risk on putting them in there. Both of them look very good. I know that's nothing to go by. You can't tell. But it is something to go by. If they had ick and you could see it, then obviously I wouldn't have done what I've done. But they looked good enough that I was willing to take the risk. So I will be keeping a very close eye on this tank for the next couple of weeks while we wait and find out and make sure everything's okay. The Gudgeon, who is now hiding over here, did its best to eat the rubber lips while they were still floating in the bag, and then showed a great deal of interest in them once I'd set them free and they were down on the bottom. He kept swimming around looking at them and was so focused on them that at one point I had to go in there with my bare hand and physically push him aside. He didn't even move until I touched him, and then he moved away, and I sort of shooed him into the back of the tank, and that gave the rubber lips time to get into this rock formation and hide. So the last I saw him, somewhere in here, was the little one. In fact, that no, that's just a leaf floating stuck in the current in there. So there's a small one, and then again, that one we saw in the back was the big one. Mainly, I just wanted to stand here and look at these rainbow fish for a little while because I think they look fantastic. They are really, really starting to color up nicely. They're really starting to develop that more mature shape that you get with the rainbow fish. They have that sort of odd shape to them. And you can see, especially in that larger one, he's starting to get that bowed back, and he's starting to round out a little bit. So these should get up to almost 6 inches when they're full grown. They've got a long way to go. These are going to be really, really impressive fish when they get older and get bigger. I'm really happy with the way they're starting to color up. And last, and obviously not least, let's walk over here where we can get a little more of the tank in view. My 125. Same deal with this one. I did not do any work on the canister filter. I ran out of batting material, which is what I use for my filter material. It's the polyester batting you use for quilting. And I just didn't worry about it. I just left the filter alone. But I did get in there and I did a big water change. Well, big for this tank, about probably a 20%. And then I wiped the front glass down, and then I butchered my floating water sprite. It's fine. It will grow back. It will grow back very quickly. You'll be surprised at how soon it'll be before I'm shooting a video where I'm getting in there and trimming my water sprite up again. But it made a huge difference when I initially did it. As you can see, it's really, really brightly lit in there. In fact, let me fix this because I just realized this LED light bar, which is one of the reasons I cut the water sprite back so dramatically. There we go. I had it pushed back from having the lid open earlier. That's what I'm talking about. I've said this before. I'll stop saying it soon because everybody will be aware of it at some point. But I had that LED light bar over my brackish tank when it was in the 20 long. And when I moved the fish into the other brackish tank, my new brackish tank, this little 120 standard over there to the left, I used the light bar to illuminate the front center of this tank. And one of the things I wanted to do was just really see how it looks in there with that light really shining on the fish. And I really like it. It really brings out the color, especially in the Congo Tetras. They're just stunning when they swim through the front of the tank the way that Ctenopoma just did. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I cut the water sprite back so dramatically. Another one of the reasons was a mistake. I cut a branch that I thought was just going to be one branch among many, and it turned out that all of the many branches I thought it was all that one. I cut the main trunk, and pretty much all of the plant that used to be down on this end that went almost to the glass down here was one branch. So one mistaken snip. And it was too late. You can't put them back once you've cut them. So that whole end came out. And like I said, it's no big deal. It'll grow back soon enough. Otherwise, everybody else is looking good. I did look around a little bit for that elephant nose while I was in there. I've not seen the elephant nose since I put the little ancestor species in there. And indeed, when I was doing the water change, I did some vacuuming and some gravel vacuuming. And I moved some rocks around, and I moved quite a bit of stuff around. I love it when he gets up in the roots like that. It's so cool looking. But I looked around quite a bit at this end of the tank where I would expect him to be hiding. This is where all the real nooks and crannies are. This wood has a surprising amount of room underneath of it. It's very cup-shaped and hollow underneath. Even the Congo Tetras could probably get under there and hide if they really wanted to. So I moved that around a little bit. I'm pretty sure that elephant nose is gone. I just can't find him anywhere in the tank. I couldn't find any remains of him, nothing. So it's been long enough now that if he did die, he would have been either eaten or just rotted away and just be gone. And he was so small in a tank this size that he literally could have just died and rotted away, and it would not have been so much of a bioload that I would have even noticed in this tank. So I think he's gone. What are you going to do? Don't know why adding those little ancestor species would have killed him off, but apparently it did or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. That's all I've done so far this week. I have done the other fish that I've got in the native tank. As I said, I do plan on shooting some video later today on that, so subscribe if you're not already. You don't want to miss anything I got coming up on the native tank. That's going to be a lot of fun. This again is my 125. So I hope you enjoyed looking at it. See you real soon on the next one.